Hey guys, I wanted to share a little bit with you tonight. It may not be a real long one, but it's also going to be kind of a personal thing that had happened also. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. But we'll go ahead and start with a man named Matt said he was never a Bigfoot believer. He says in 2018 he was driving when he saw a movement in the woods. He thought it was going to be a deer, but it was much bigger. He said he saw something walk right across the road. It was brown, like a paper sack. He also said he saw it jump into a nearby ditch and noticed its feet were jet black. He also says the creature had long black hair. Brown and black in the woods, if you're a hunter, you would know that is really hard two colors to see. Uh, Matt says he was dumbfounded. He also said he learned of other reported sightings in the area. Bill said he went camping in an area where the reported Bigfoot sightings. He thought he would get a good night's sleep, but it was anything but that. He said he woke up at about 1:30 a.m. to a lot of noise, including owls. Now, owls happen a lot, and we're going to get into that more here in a minute. He said he then heard lots of huffing and puffing near his tent. Bill said he jumped up, spun around, and thought he saw Bigfoot. They will let you have the daytime, but they don't want you there at the night, Bill said in a documentary. And that really made me start thinking about an area I sent Red Dirt Cryptid and was telling him about. There is a place down in the woods that I've went and fished many times, and I always thought it was funny that there was an elder I used to fish with. His name was Ernie. He's passed away now. The best man probably I'd ever met. And he always told me, don't be caught down here after dark, but daytime was always fine. Well, this is really close to where we had the daytime sighting of the Bigfoot with my mom and some other friends. But at nighttime, including myself and a lot of other friends, tried to camp this area and have been unable to. Anything as far as horses running. They said one night they were out there, they heard horses running, weird heavy breathing. They looked around. Of course, there's no horses down there, and they didn't see anything, and they were ran out. One time there was some other friends were camping there. They heard some laughing, witch-like laughing. That's where I saw what me and my cousin called the witch's face. So this area during the daytime has always been pretty okay, but at nighttime it seems it takes on a different era about it. He said he was afraid he wouldn't make it to his car without getting attacked, so he grabbed his loaded 45. He shot toward the creature. Bill says it was a mistake because it was so loud it stirred up the woods. He said he realized maybe other creatures were angry because they thought he had shot one of their own. And as you know, these creatures have been known to retaliate in many different stories. That if you hurt one of them, they've been known to even. There was a story where a guy was in a cabin and it reached through the cabin wall and pulled him out, and they never found him. Which brings me to a story. There was a friend of the family that used to go down and visit my granny before my granny had had her stroke, and right after my grandpa had passed away. I apologize for that, guys. There's some stuff coming through. And she would visit, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then later, what really got really weird is she'd stay later and later, and she started telling my granny that she thought she had a Bigfoot down at her house also. And as she would go home at night, now she lived way down in the woods, and her husband had also passed away. And I'm talking like, I wouldn't have stayed down there by myself. And I'm not, sorry, my allergies tonight. I'm not joking. Oh, excuse me. I had to sneeze. I wouldn't have stayed in her house. No way I would have ever stayed in that house where she stayed by herself. She was stronger than me, tougher than me. These older people back then, they were just stronger. But anyway, she said she'd be on her way home at night sometime, and her driveway was a long, dark drive. And she owned this huge building that had been known for a long time, had been the headquarters of cult activity. And she would go home, and she said she seen this creature run across the road one night. Scared her pretty bad, so she would stay at my granny's, a little later and later each night, probably dreading the trip home. One night she went home, and whenever she went home, she was almost to her doorway, and you got a picture. She's in the middle of nowhere, guys. She gets to her doorway and she said this thing screams at her from the woods. She's fumbling the keys, drops the keys. The car is behind her. Whatever it is runs up and hits the car like it ran into the car, she said. And her whole car just rocks. She runs inside. She had a 25-06. She grabbed her rifle, locked her door, said she fired a shot out the window. And when she fired, she said simultaneously, it screamed. So she either scared it, it was mad, or whatever, but she said it ran. She saw it run from the back of her car into the woods, and she said it was so fast she couldn't believe it. And with the size and everything, she said the agility and the way it moved really surprised her. She was retired Navy. Uh, but she would get to where she'd stay at Granny's later and later and later. And you know how we talked about in the cases where there is a creature, and he was coming up eating her scraps also. He started eating her fruit out of her fruit trees, even raiding her garden. He would strip like a half a thing of corn at night. And she said she didn't care. She let him have it, you know. And she was seeing a large footprint in her garden. And it was just really, I think, really bothering her. And she got where she would stay later and later and later and later. And it just got to the point to where, you know, she just didn't want to go home. Well, the 25% we talk about, there's paranormal activity in a lot of these events. She was standing at her sink, and this is the paranormal part of it, and she's washing her hands, and she said behind her, it feels like somebody walked in the back door, but she said she knew the back door was locked. So she said she walks over to her bedroom, and she's down there by herself. It's daylight, though, middle of nowhere, and she's looking in her house thinking somebody's walked in. She's scared. She's carrying a knife with her. She said it was a large steak knife. And she said she looks all through her house and the doors are locked and everything. So she picks the phone up and she calls, I think it was her daughter. And she talks to her daughter, and her daughter's like, well, make sure nobody's there, you know. So she ends up calling a guy that lived, you know, in Halloween. He came out and checked everything, and everything was fine. Well, she's done her dishes later that evening after she had ate. And while she's done her dishes, she hears the same noise, like something had walked in the door. Nothing's there. She continues to do her dishes. Well, her sink is a little sink in the middle, and she's got cabinets up here and cabinets up here, and it's a cutout spot. She's standing looking out the window toward the woods doing her dishes. All of a sudden, a steak knife flies past her head and sticks into the cabinet right beside her head. She turns around. A black shadow goes into her bedroom. Scared the lady bad. She's in her 70s. She runs out, gets in her car. Of course, she leaves. And she had the preacher of the church come out to her house, and he blessed the house. After the blessing of the house, there was never any more paranormal activity happened in the house. But the Bigfoot still kept coming around, and she would tell a story after story after story. Later, she would pass away in that house. And there was rumored that she had had a stroke, and she had been in that house a few days by herself. Had tried to call 911. We don't have 911 like GPS locations where we live because it's so remote. They knew they were getting a call, but they didn't know exactly where it was coming from. And then they found her, and she had passed away. And it makes me wonder sometimes if she saw something that caused that, or if it just, you know, normal. But I still think about her. She was a great woman. I knew her for many, many years. Her and her husband both. Really good people. And I just, you know, makes me wonder sometimes, what did she go through, or what did she see? But I wanted to share a little bit about her, to put her story out there, and to look back and remember her. She was a strong lady, and all them people were. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and listening tonight. God bless you. Keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. Don't make yourself, you know, in a vulnerable position where something may take advantage of it. And as always, catch my next video. We'll see you in the next one.